Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. If you like the video, make sure to subscribe to my channel. Let's begin. 1. 8 Chapter 1. The selection. The Hokages will summary. The aftermath of Pain's attack left Tsunade in comatose. With a sudden surprise from the Lord of Fire, Naruto is left inheriting the mantle. Disclaimer. I do not own Naruto. All copyrights belong to Masashi Kishimoto, Suisha and Viz Media. This is strictly for fan purposes only. Chapter 1. The selection, as it was foretold. The elder sage of Myobokuzen said in his shaking voice, holding within his hand the crystal ball to see the events that had occurred. Gamabunta sat in front of the elder sage and watched the events unfold. His injuries aching his gigantic body forced him to be summoned out of Konoha. The battle with Pain was made into a full battle of attrition against Naruto, who in the end succeeded by finishing the fight with God Realm with a slew of backup plans. Though it is unthinkable that Jiraiya's two apprentices were the chosen of this prophecy, the change and revolution of the ninja world. The crystal ball, willed by the elder sage, zoomed in on Naruto's hand that held the first book that Jiraiya ever made. The elder sage then said, "That book really is the key to change for a prosperous future." Gamabunta wordlessly looked onto the crystal ball. As he viewed the features of young Naruto, the image of the fourth Hokage took over his vision. With a wipe from one of his forearms, Gamabunta then said, "The kid is making me remind of the fourth. It's through this brat that everything will change. I'm honored to have been of service to this brat." The elder sage commented, "Maybe this was all meant to be, from the time Jiraiya decided to never give up." The sounds of rushing water were the only things that could be heard in the great structure of Myobokuzen that day. Konoha. Geto Rinne Tensai no Jutsu, Outer Path. Samsara of Heavenly Life Technique. Nagato shouted, his chakra pouring out of his body. His remaining life force, going to the jutsu he had created. He said to Naruto, "I believe in you, I can see a bright future. Thank you, Naruto. You made me remind myself of my youth, my idealism. I'll put my faith in you as Yahiko and Sensei did to me. With this, the deed is done." In the midst of Pain's parting speech, a giant creature, with its concentric eyes of the Rinnegan, sprouted forth from the ground zero of Pain's Shinra Tensai, divine subjugation of the omnipresent God. With its mark of king on its forehead, it undid the strings that covered of its gaping mouth, releasing countless souls of the people venturing in the twilight of life and death. In the false tree, Nagato said as his shivering hands reached out to the blonde, "Just one more time. Let me put my faith back to true peace. One more time. Let me dream that beautiful dream." Nagato slowly began to lose his consciousness. Naruto caught him by the arms, a sullen expression written all over his face. Nagato. Konan remained silent as she closed her eyes, as Nagato had started breathing his last. What did Nagato do? Naruto asks, as Nagato was starting his heavy breathing. Nagato, as the seventh Pain, he is able to control life and death. For he who controls the Rinnegan is above the cycle of life and death. Nagato looked upwards, the false tree starting to disperse. "At least, let me do this, for the people that I have killed in this village. This is my payment to you. Thank you, Uzumaki Naruto. I can rest easy. My dream, Yahiko's dream, we will give to you. My role is over now." With that, Nagato silently paused, slowly succumbing to the merciful embrace of death. No longer shall he suffer the pains of his past, haunting him in his very soul, freed from his drive and obsession. "I promise you, Nagato, I'll be the one to break this curse, believe in me." Naruto uttered, closing his eyes. A lone tear flows from his left eye, signaling his sorrow. If only it weren't for Danzo and Madara, all this pain and madness wouldn't have happened. It was in this moment he had understood what Jiraiya finally wanted for him to have. If I can't be the one to be that person to bring peace to the world, if I can't find that answer, Naruto, you'll be the one to do it for me. You bet. Naruto stood up, holding in his hand in a firm grip the first book that Jiraiya had written. Konan wrapped Nagato's body with her paper. She looked on as Naruto followed her. Looking to the place where Naruto had defeated Tendo, Heaven Path, God Realm, Pain. She arrived, silent as the angel of God that she was portrayed to be, gentle and comforting. With a flick of her hand, countless papers wrapped around the form of the body of God Realm. Naruto asks, "You're taking this body too?" Konan replied, "This is the body used to be God Realm. This was Yahiko, he was someone very dear to us." She looked back as the countless papers surrounded the Yahiko's corpse. War brings death, wounds and pain to both sides. There is nothing harder to accept than the death of those that you love, your generation that hasn't known war. Try to find meaning in death only to be left with pain and hatred that you don't know what to do with. Dying like trash, never-ending hatred, that is war. This is what you must face. Naruto, the book that Nagato so held dearly, and you, it was as if it was the workings of the true God. Naruto not once looked over to the woman as he looked down. Are you going back to Akatsuki? I am done with Akatsuki. Yahiko and Nagato were everything to me. They've entrusted their dreams to you. Nagato believed in you, so I'll do the same. A megacure will help you any way it can. Naruto wordlessly looked at the corpses of his fellow pupils and touched them. I'll be the person to end all of this tragedy. It's what my master and fellow pupils had given me. You've taught me to be a stronger person, I promise. I'll do everything I can. Konan raised her right arm and papers began swirling around her hand, folding and forming a bouquet of paper roses. The blue-haired girl handed it over to Naruto and said, "This time, I hope for you that these flowers of hope never die." Naruto merely smiled and accepted the gift, as he reached out for it with both his hands and held it tight. A memory of his former master crossed his mind. Oh? That's pretty good, Naruto? How about we go out tonight and celebrate with ice cream? Alright, thanks Ero Sennin. Hey, Naruto, I got the best view on the house here. Want to take a look? You serious? What if we get caught? You worry over the little stuff like that and you'll grow up to be such a prude like Tsunade. No way. Ero Sennin, I got a new idea for a jutsu. Want to see? Oh, really? Well, let's see it then. That was great, Naruto. You really are my most favorite apprentice. Ha 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 ha. Now I've got an idea for my next book. How about you write a chapter here for me? Sure. Hey, Ero Sennin, did you know you're like the grandfather I never had? What's with this all of a sudden? And no matter how you say it, I'll always be proud of my apprentice. Thanks Ero Sennin. Memories of his master crossed his mind, as he slowly formed a smile and tears fell like rivers cascading down his whiskered cheeks. He turned his back from the view that he last saw Konan, and walked back to the village that was laid in ruins. Within his hands, he held the paper roses that Konan had given him, and the memento of his master. Just watch me, you perverted hermit. I'll make your dreams a reality. He jumped up, his optimism showed forth like the radiant sun. Kakashi. In the period of talking with his father in limbo, Kakashi realized that he felt his chest a little lighter, his back broader, as if a weight on his shoulder was lifted. His father had talked to him so casually and so normally in front of the only light within that darkness, that small campfire that his father had waited on for years since his death. Thanks to their talk, Tsukumo was able to go meet his wife finally. The shame that Kakashi had shown in years of his childhood was no longer there, only acceptance. With renewed strength, Kakashi went searching for his student that defeated pain. Going through the forest, he saw Naruto, tired and fatigued that he was, an image that wasn't always present. Within his hands were a bouquet of paper roses and a small book. Naruto staggered, feeling the weight of his exhaustion taking over. He fell down, but was caught by Kakashi, who only said, "Good work." Surprised, Naruto shouted to the teacher, "Kakashi-sensei, save your breath and hold on. We're going back to the village." As soon as the village came into view, literally thousands upon thousands of the villagers and ninja were all there to meet him. "Welcome back. We believed in you. Thank you." Words of gratitude and awe were shouted from the joyous villagers, and children began rushing towards him, pushing and shoving to get close to the person that had saved them and caused a miracle within the village. "They've all been waiting for your return," Kakashi mentioned, in the small slug that had been with Naruto, a part of Katsuya, said. "I told them everything that had happened. They've been waiting for you all this time." A shard of memory had hit Kakashi's mind. "My dream is to one day become Hokage, and for everyone to acknowledge my existence." In the background, Iruka recalled the moment when Naruto was when he was a child, and to the moment that he had been embraced by the village. A smile had escaped his lips that turned into a full-blown grin, tears of joy overwhelming the teacher. As everyone cheered, certain people seemed to have been approached by the Anbu. This went unnoticed to several of the crowd. Nara Shikaku, who was one of the people that were approached, asked the masked ninja, "What is it?" "You were to report to the council room immediately." Shikaku frowned and lowered his head and asked, "Already?" Kakashi looked on in aloofness. Naruto whispered to him, "Take me to the council room immediately, sensei. It's time I put a stop to Danzo's underground operations." Kakashi looked incredulous. Did Naruto obtain very sensitive information about Root? And why was he requesting one of the elder toads to accompany him and carry one of their scroll lists for active toads? This wouldn't have happened if I was called back sooner, and the timing of the whole thing, it doesn't add up, sensei. I know I may not notice the simple things back then, but thanks to my training in senjutsu, sage arts, I've been more particular. Please sensei, just this once. Kakashi nodded. Naruto was determined, and that looked like something that will remain there until he got what he want. Far in the village outskirts, an oversized-looking Venus flytrap emerged from the thick branch of one of the gigantic trees surrounding the village. I never thought pain could be defeated like this. I must report this immediately, Zetsu said, as he observed the blonde Jinchuriki being escorted away with the infamous copy ninja Kakashi. Madara must take note of this. With that, he sunk into the trunk again, his Kagero, Mayfly, taking effect, traveling at the speed of sound. The council room. The council room looked tense. Everyone was facing a hard time ahead. Pain's assault on Konoha did more damage than it should have. We plan on continuing with other countries to counter the threat posed by Akatsuki, Homura mentioned, making clear his intentions on the matter at hand. Being the remaining village with a Jinchuriki, it was more likely that they will target Konoha again. The one from the financing department in the Land of Fire said, after what's happened to the village, the Land of Fire will do anything it can into getting Konoha rebuilt, but first we need to set up a considerable amount of budget and then take into account the strain on the other countries as well. Danzo in particular, raised his head and showed his uncovered eye, gleaming in the sunlight. There are other important issues to be discussed, such as who will be the next Hokage. All of the people in the room remained silent. The Fire Lord said, couldn't we just wait for Tsunade to awaken? I am sure the matter will fix itself eventually. Kaharu had voiced her opinion, my lord, Tsunade is still in a coma, we can't decide on a plan for the village when she will wake up. Besides, the destruction of Konoha was partially her fault. The Fire Lord sighed as he leaned back into his seat, fanning himself. I'd choose Jiraiya, I liked him, but he's gone now. Seeing Danzo was about to speak, Shikaku intervened, clearly seeing the schemes of the old warhawk. I nominate Hitaki Kakashi. The Fire Lord seemed impressed. Oh ho, the son of the White Fang, eh? Why not? What do all of you think? Murmurs and whispers went around the council chambers talking about the situation. He's well known, strong and respected, that's true, but he's very young. Minato was even younger. A councilman asked Shikaku, who was his teacher? Shikaku replied in a calm demeanor, everything was swaying in his favor. The Yondaime Hokage. The Fire Daimyo seemed impressed again. Ah, Kakashi, who was taught by the fourth Hokage, taught by Jiraiya and taught by the Sandaime, it is a fine selection. The old noble added with a smile. The third Hokage's teachings have as good as destroyed the village. The leader of Akatsuki, Pain, was once Jiraiya's pupil. Everyone turned to Danzo, who seemed to have opposed the idea, but before he could make headway, it was then that he was cut off. The Sandaime was never wrong in his teachings. It was then that Naruto appeared from the entrance of the door, and within his hands was a scroll along with the Fukasaku resting on his shoulders. He looked at Danzo in contempt and said, you were responsible for this, Danzo, and I would be damned if you were to become Hokage. You were the one that let Pain roam free in Konoha. You and Hanzo were the ones that created him. You are in part to blame on Nagato turning what he was. Everyone seemed quiet at that. Homura and Kaharu stood up. An elder woman said, Uzumaki Naruto, you are not permitted to enter the council room. This can be considered an act of insubordination. Naruto stood firm. Outside, Kakashi leaned on the door, so that no one would enter. To his right was Yamato nervously waiting for one of his charges inside. It was like dipping your toe on boiling water. Such a risky move would get them severely punished if Danzo ever did turn into Hokage. Have faith in your subordinate, Yamato. I did, and I know what he's doing is the right thing. If only those simple words would be enough to encourage him. Inside, Naruto spoke. Where did you get information about Pain being my sensei's pupil? As far as I can tell, only the Sannin knew of it. You've dug your own grave, Danzo. You've involuntarily suggested about your involvement with the Megacure's affairs, more specifically, with Hanzo of the Salamander. It was because of you that Nagato became the leader of Akatsuki by killing his friend, Yahiko. You thought that their movement in a Megacure was a threat on its own without even considering that we should not interfere in political affairs that do not concern us. Shikaku seemed to grin as he held his head down. Naruto had a point. It seemed now was time to back up the child. That's true. What happened in Kiri is an example. We do not intervene in actions that concern internal affairs of a country that is outside our jurisdiction, which is almost every country not the land of fire. Do you have any explanation on this, Danzo? Shikaku asks. Proof. Danzo mentioned and then continued, where's your proof, child? Naruto looked at the man in a heartbeat and said, the citizens of Konoha that were revived just earlier. During my fight with him, he told me that his organization back then only wanted to have peace talks with Hanzo. But you coaxed him, Danzo, coaxed Hanzo of the Salamander to suppress the movement. Because of this, Nagato, who was stricken with grief, was tricked into making Akatsuki, a terrorist organization that went and gathered all the Jinchuriki and Biju that roamed. How are the citizens concerned with this? Homura asks. Nagato, who held the Rinnegan, had an ability to revive the people that have died in a short amount of time. I convinced him to stop his actions and understand that Jiraiya's teachings weren't just idealistic. It was then he gave me the reason to why he would go so much as far as destroy Konoha. All because Danzo aided Hanzo in putting down Yahiko and Nagato's faction. The Fire Lord raised an eyebrow at this and said, well now, those are pretty strong allegations. It seems we can't turn Danzo into Hokage, for it will cause such a public outrage if word of your involvement gets out. To this Danzo sat back into his seat. Shikaku smiled, as he leaned back and let the progress of a new Hokage take place. You were also responsible in delaying my return, Danzo Teme. Naruto mentioned, his frown forming deeper. With my delay, Pain was free to do as he pleased. He terrorized and killed many of our troops. Those that didn't know my whereabouts back then were incapacitated or even killed. Did you know how many lives could have ended then? I know you've been hungering for power for years. Tsunade explained to me your reasons why you still run route, and how she fervently opposed any idea and suggestion you had given. This proof shall be all that's needed. He raised the crystal ball to Fukasaku's hands and the small toad held it firmly with his tiny hands. Little Jiraiya explained to me once that the Hokage's office is filled with seals that the Hokage installed without anyone's knowledge other than his own and with little Jiraiya's. He said to me that the seals were there to record in the crystal ball the events that occur whenever the Hokage was not around. The trigger of that seal would be the seal etched onto every Hokage that set foot in that office, through their clothing or otherwise. It was then that Naruto unfurled the gigantic scroll, and in it was the list of the active toads that reside in Myobokuzen. When we left the village to train Naruto, we left here with a summoner toad to send Naruto back to the village if ever he was needed. If one of ours were killed, their names would be erased from the active scroll. This is what happened in the events that Pain started his invasion of Konoha. They saw a picture of Danzo. His back turned from the viewers and saw that the man stabbed the summoning toad with a tanto. Homura and Kaharu looked at each other and then to the Fire Lord, who frowned. Quite. It seemed that the reason why Naruto was sent back later than expected was indeed Danzo. Even if Naruto weren't to return, Pain would have attacked nonetheless. I think I may have an idea of who is to become the next Hokage. In that very moment, the wheels of fate began turning again, its gears shifting to start an event that will be remembered for all of the people of Konoha. Unknown location. So Pain was defeated, huh? Madara asks. Zetsu answered with a nod. End of the Hokage? Zetsu answered, they're still determining who it's going to be, though it would most likely be Danzo based on speculation. Madara's eye gleamed at that. It seemed like the perfect opportunity to start his plan. Konan is not coming back. We need another pawn to sync with Gedo Mazo, demonic statue of the outer realm. Toby remained silent for a moment, contemplating his next move. He then looked at Kisame and said, Kisame, you go after the eight-tailed beast. I've got matters to attend to. Zetsu, make sure to monitor the events in Konoha. Confirm that Danzo is indeed the Hokage. Come with me when you're done. When Toby had received word that the 5-Cage Summit would take place in Kurigane no Kuni, he began to worry about the measures that the 5 major countries that would impose sanctions and interventions against Akatsuki. Their movement would be smaller than what it was before, not that it would be a problem for him. All he needed were the remaining 2 Biju that still roamed the earth, but with Naruto defeating his greatest piece on the board, Madara was adamant about letting one of his members get him now, and with Konoha very aware and assigned task forces against the organization, Madara would eventually be forced to start from scratch. The sounds of footsteps could only be heard as Kisame exited the small cave that housed the Gedo Mazo. What will it be now, Toby? Asked Zetsu. Madara merely said, leave everything to me, said the man as a spiral contortion happened in front of him. The space seemed to bend and fold, as Madara was sent in a spiral motion in a single point, like rushing water down the drain. The world will turn at this very single point, for it will embark on something much, much more grand. Konoha. What? Naruto asked, flabbergasted, as the Fire Lord patted on his shoulder and said, as the student of both Jiraiya and Kakashi, and the one responsible in defeating the leader of Akatsuki, I appoint you Uzumaki Naruto as the Rokudame Hokage. Naruto seemed in shock at this. Why me? You have proven that you are strong and the villagers love you, you have the charisma and strength, you're perfect for the job, said the Fire Lord. Everyone around, except for Shikaku, seemed unsure of this. My lord, you are giving a job of great importance to a child? But this is unheard of, asked Kaharu. Wind Country has done the same, has it not? There were also rumors that this boy is responsible for the countless allegiances we have been receiving as of late, not to mention he is the child of Namikaze Minato. It would be great for Uzumaki-san to rise in this world as a political figurehead. He's already on a level that rivals Jiraiya. An S-class warrior of one so young is hard to come by. The Fire Lord countered in a sagely manner. Most of the members seemed to nod at this. But I'm still a genin, and the appointment of Kage needs not to be ranked. Chunin can become Hokage, why can't genin for that matter? It is all about discernment, child. With that, the Fire Lord stood up. Naruto remained silent. Will you accept, Uzumaki Naruto, or should we call you, Hokage-sama? Asked the Fire Lord. Naruto still stood, and contemplated the situation. The moment he would extend his arm, he will become Hokage, the strongest of Konohagakure, the ideal figure of a shinobi. But if this is what needed to protect the people, then so be it. The Fire Lord smiled and Naruto remained silent. I just want one thing, in 5 days. Announce my succession in 5 days. I still have unfinished business to take care of. Fukasaku-sensei, I wish to learn about Fuinjutsu. Can I master it in a span of 5 days? Fukasaku closed his eyes and gave his answer. That depends on you, Naruto-chan, but I'm sure with the method of using Kakashi's training you would be done by then. Good, then I'll see all of you in 5 days. Naruto was about to exit, but he was stopped by Kaharu and Homura. Hokage-sama, with the time needed for reconstruction and repairs, we need your authorization to allow a construction company in the emergency provisions. There's a friend of mine from Wave that happens to own a construction company. Send for them. Emergency provisions should be easy enough to obtain from Spring Country. Just mention to them my name and they will comply. Naruto answered as he went out. The Fire Lord smiled further. A great Hokage indeed. Outside, Kakashi stepped back and kneeled in front of Naruto. The blonde had a sweat drop at the back of his head and sighed. Hokage-sama. Both Kakashi and Yamato replied. Naruto seemed uncomfortable with the title yet. Kakashi-sensei, I'll be going out for 5 days as you have probably heard. I want you to oversee the construction and repairs with Yamato Taiko. I won't be here. I'll be going back to training with Fukasaku-sensei in Myobokuzen. Also, I trust the two of you. Danzo may have a trick up his sleeve. Make sure you guard the summoning frog that will be left here. I don't want things like Pain's invasion happening again. With that, the three walked away from the council chambers. Danzo looked below in disdain and sighed. Another defeat from Sarutobi. As the dejected old leader steps away, his plans to take over the seat already going through his mind again. Naruto seemed fazed by this decision of the Fire Lord to appoint him as the new Hokage. It was an unbelievable dream to start with, and one being so young, only 16 years old, and he became Hokage. How old was his father when he was appointed to take the seat? It was then that in front of him, 3 Kumo shinobi had appeared. We want to know where the Hokage is, can you take us to him? The one with the blonde hair and buxom chest replied. Yamato looked Naruto and Kakashi doing the same. The blonde turned his head to both his teachers and sighed. Let's go talk about this in the office. Fukasaku is waiting for me. Kakashi-sensei, Yamato-sensei, please escort these 3 to the Hokage's office. Make sure they are not seen by any of the Hyuga. Naruto requested. Both Kakashi and Yamato replied. Don't be so formal about us now, Hokage-sama. You are now our superior and as such please treat us as your subordinates. The two saluted and Naruto sighed again, dropping his head. I'm never going to get used to that, uttered the blonde as he waved his hand and went home to gather his things. The 3 Kumo nin looked at each other and then back to the teenage blonde. So, he's the Hokage? Asked the only male in the group. Kakashi answered, newly instated. He's the one responsible in defeating Akatsuki's leader, Pain. You're serious? Asked Karui, surprised by it. What kind of self-respecting Hokage wears orange? You're probably wondering, what kind of self-respecting Hokage wears orange? Right? Kakashi asks. Karui looked surprised at the aloof Junin. Did he read her mind like that? Well, like we said, he's newly instated, but he'll be wearing different clothes when he gets back. Yamato replied. With that, the two Junin escorted them to the Hokage's office. Naruto. It took him only 10 minutes to prepare his gear to what would be another training trip. The chance that had been given to him to become Hokage, he accepted it. Knowing full well on what might happen, he might not be able to get out of the village as much as he used to, but when he saw the destruction of his village then, he knew what he had to do, and the promise he had kept to Nagato lingered on his mind. If he would be the one to break this curse, then this was the most golden opportunity he could have ever hoped for. He was met with his senjutsu teacher outside his apartment, Fukasaku patiently waiting on his home, with some clothes on his hands. Here's a replacement Haori that Shima made. She came by earlier and asks if you wear a new set of clothing. She said that wearing such ghastly colors is not proper for a Hokage. Naruto was about to retort and ask what was wrong about orange, but he was shoved back inside his room, with the Haori and another set of clothes. A few minutes later, Naruto went out wearing the standard Konoha uniform, but instead of the navy blue long-sleeve undershirt, he was wearing black under the green flak jacket. Naruto wore his Haori and a gold chain interlocked from one side of the base of the neck of the ceremonial piece of cloth to the other. Naruto looked down on his uniform, a grin was forming on his lips. Wow, I look great in this, said the blonde, viewing the red Haori with the black flame design at the hem and the holes that opened above his elbows. Naruto then untied the headband from his head, and instead tied it around his neck, the long black cloth dangling on his back, his hair going down to his forehead and face. Fukasaku smiled and said, a spitting image of your father. Naruto smiled at that, all the while his left hand going to the back of his head scratching it. He felt proud and embarrassed at the same time. Now let's address those that needed to be addressed, Hokage-sama, Fukasaku teased. Naruto groaned as he said to the elder Toad, not you too, Fukasaku-sensei. The elder Toad merely gave a hearty laugh. The era of change was about to occur, he thought, and he could see such hopeful future in Naruto. He hoped that he gets to see it before his time, which he most certainly will, for his part in the affairs of the world is done, and the only remaining thing to do would be to polish an already sharpened blade. Naruto had already grown into such a fine young man, and grew plenty from his life. It was time that he lead his peers and call the shots. Naruto may be young, but in his heart and soul lies the aspect of a true leader, one who would put the interest of the people first, one who could convince people to move mountains, one who could make people believe in him. To Fukasaku, Naruto was the miracle that was needed in order to change this world. It was his wish that came true when he fought for the village against Pain. The teacher from Myobokuzen, after hearing the battle, gave a proud smile to Naruto. The boy that could do miracles, the hope of the world, took this huge leap of fate. Perhaps it was meant to be that Naruto lead the people in trying times. But that huge burden must be too much to bear for a person as young as he is. They made their way to the Hokage's office. Naruto was careful not to be seen by any of his new fans. He was still unprepared for something as big as becoming Hokage right now. As he made his way upstairs, he opened the door to his office, and there sat in front of his desk was the trio that came from Cloud. Kakashi looked stunned as he saw Naruto. He was the absolute spitting image of the fourth in that uniform of his. He sat on the Hokage's chair. A feeling of nostalgia took over him as he leaned back and said, I'd never imagined sitting in this chair with my age. It feels different, the new Hokage said, his two subordinates standing firm to his side. Kakashi and Yamato spoke at the same time. You will eventually get used to it, Hokage-sama. Naruto disdainfully looked at his two former teachers and shouted, cut the crap already. Kakashi and Yamato merely smiled and forced back a laugh. He then turned to the visiting Kumo ninjas that had sweat drops at the back of their heads. So what are you guys here for? Asked the blonde haphazardly, his left elbow resting on the desk and his chin resting on the palm of his left hand. Samui looked at her team and Omoi gave the scroll to her. The busty female then said, Raikage-sama has requested a cage summit in a week. He wishes to discuss on what to do about Akatsuki. Naruto raised an eyebrow at that and then turned to Kakashi. Sensei, has Ba-chan sent request aides to fight against Akatsuki when I wasn't here? Kakashi visibly nodded. Yes, but the requests were denied by both Earth Country and Lightning Country several times, forcing her to create the Niju Shoutai, 20 platoons. The team from Kumo was shocked to hear this. The Raikage denied pleas from Konoha to aid them against Akatsuki. Naruto turned back to the team and said, I know the importance of taking down the Akatsuki. I've encountered almost all of their members in the past. My only question is, why act now all of a sudden? Samui, the spokesperson of the team said, the Raikage's brother, Killer Bee, was taken captive by Akatsuki when he was in Unraikyo, Valley of Clouds and Lightning. Naruto then said, so he's a host then. The blonde then turned around and asked Yamato, Sensei, you still have that book that Kabuto gave us? It has all the information they need about the remaining members of the organization. Samui looked at the young Hokage for a moment and then to the one with the face plate who rummaged through his gear and gave the small book to her. Samui turned and flipped every page, scanning the members, and then gave the book back on the desk. I'm sorry, but this seems a bit outdated, Hokage-sama. The Akatsuki seems to have gained new members in their ranks. Samui bowed. Naruto looked on in interest, and he stood up and asked, who? Was his simple question. Samui seemed shocked for a moment and then said, Uchiha Sasuke. This time, it was Naruto who frowned as he sat down. Are you sure about this? Samui nodded her head. I am positive. Our sources have clear visual proof. We want to know all about Uchiha Sasuke. What are his abilities? Techniques? Samui continued. Kakashi looked on in hidden worry for the new Hokage. Naruto seemed to clench his fists on the table. There was a sign of anger and grief laden in his whole body, until finally he sat down. The blonde gave a sigh and asked to the three, what are you going to do if I gave the information to you? We'll hunt him down and kill him, of course. Karui shouted. Omoi chastised the firebrand and looked at the Hokage. Naruto looked at Karui and then sighed. I'm sorry, but the records of Uchiha Sasuke are dated. During my predecessor's reign, all records of Shinobi in the past 3 years were updated except all known Nuke Nin, and with Sasuke joining a shady group, the search for info on him would be much harder. Old Lady Tsunade focused on the tasks of increasing the village's shinobi count that was considerably reduced during the invasion of Sound and Sand. I'm sorry I can't help you any further, but the old records would be the only thing that would help you. Naruto lied. He knew some of Sasuke's techniques that could help the team, but he didn't want Sasuke dead. No, revenge is a very dark path and a path that lead to unfulfilled, emptiness and nothingness. It was no use in bringing back the dead. There was nothing to gain, only everything to lose. But before taking down Sasuke, your teacher may still be alive. Focus on finding and rescuing him, first. Naruto advised. Kakashi merely stepped back, and sighed. Naruto seemed to have handled that situation well. Samui looked at the Hokage in shock and asked, how can you be sure? Naruto simply replied, Akatsuki needs the hosts alive. I am one of them, I should know. A member blurted out that they needed us in living and breathing conditions. I have the most experience out of the 9 hosts in handling them. It was then that Naruto asked Samui about the Cage Summit. Where will the summit be held, Kunoichi-san? Tetsu no Kuni, Land of Iron. We thank you for your cooperation, Hokage-sama, and the info you have given us that Killer Bee is still alive. Naruto merely nodded. As he placed his backpack on his shoulders, Fukasaku was patiently waiting at the desk. Yamato-sensei, escort these guys on the records department in the library. Kakashi-sensei, I trust you can handle things here while I'm gone? Kakashi nodded and Yamato saluted. All shall be done in the request of the Hokage. Naruto put a finger up, about to say something, but decided to stop and said, forget it. With a dejected sigh, he was met with his new teacher, Fukasaku. Naruto bit his right thumb and drew blood, swiping it on his left palm. He began trailing 5 hand seals and there appeared a very small frog. Fukasaku spoke to the small frog. Alright, Gamamayu, you're going to be the summoner here in Konoha while I train Naruto at Myobokuzan. Make sure you stick close to the masked Junin with the slanting Hite Ite. Summon Naruto back here within 5 days. The small frog gave a salute and Naruto nodded. He looked up in the starlit night sky as he was about to leave. The old toad Fukasaku asked him, why are you interested in Fuinjutsu, Naruto-chan? Naruto merely gave an answer, because if I want to beat Madara and the rest of the Akatsuki, I'd have to learn anything that I can. I saw the effect of what seals can do. This will compensate for me not having any bloodline. I'll just have to learn harder than normal. Naruto's expression then turned grim. That, and I thought I'd have the chance to counter that bastard Sharingan technique. An image of the spiral masked man crossed his mind. Naruto frowned. The meeting of the 5 cages will occur in 1 week's time. I'll pour everything I have to this training. Please Fukasaku-sensei, teach me. Fukasaku merely gave a knowing smile. Over the course of 5 days, Fukasaku would be surprised just how fast Naruto learns and how long his drive to succeed is. The Rokudame Hokage has begun to make his move. This time, nothing is going to hold him back. Chapter 2. Starting all over, Ascension 2 days after Pain's attack on Konoha. The village had begun rebuilding itself from scratch once again. Kakashi, as the acting Hokage for Naruto as the blonde polishes himself enough for his position, had sent emissaries to Nami, Wave, and Haru, Spring. Currently, the ones assigned for the mission to Wave, looked up at the gigantic sign that had greeted them at the entrance of the gigantic bridge. Well, I'll be a monkey's uncle. Konohamaru muttered. Udon then said, technically, you're a monkey summoner, not an uncle. Konohamaru glared daggers at his snot-dripping teammate and said, it was an expression, jackass. Indeed, after training hard under Ebisu's watch, Konohamaru, after learning of Naruto's summons, earned the right to sign the contract with the monkey summons. Although not as monstrous as Naruto's toad summons, the monkeys were strong. The monkeys excelled in close to mid-range combat. Konohamaru had to learn how to handle a bow staff. His first summon happened to be the son of Monkey King, Enma. A young monkey in training that could transform into a 3-quartered staff. And although he could have used that against Pain in their fight, he wasn't very skilled in using Goku at the moment, which was a prerequisite in earning the right to use Enma. Much to his never-ending frustration about it, Konohamaru persevered, if only to catch up to Naruto, who could summon the boss frog, Gamabunta, in battle. Moegi merely stared up at the name of the bridge and seemed awed with their Bozu. The Great Naruto Bridge, wow, I can't believe they named a bridge to the Bozu. Hey, Konohamaru-kun, how do you think Naruto Oyabun has gone far? Konohamaru shrugged. Don't know really, if he fought that freaky Pain guy in Wan, he's gotten so much stronger. I wish I could have seen their fight closer. Speaking of Oyabun, I haven't seen him in the past few days. Where do you think he went? Udon axe. Konohamaru huffed and bonked Udon's head lightly. Training, of course. He's of to do more epic things, like saving a princess. He's done that. Moegi cut off. Konohamaru's eyes bugged out and said, what? Udon replied, you haven't heard Konohamaru-kun? Bozu was in a movie, a few years ago. She saved Fujikaze Yukie, the actress, who turned out to be a real-life princess. Ebisu, who fixed his shades, grew somewhat, turning into a green-eyed monster because of the rumored ending of the said film, nodded and said, it's true, Konohamaru-kun. Naruto-kun did save Koyukiheim. Konohamaru shouted, you've got to be kidding me. Oyabun already did that. All 3 of his traveling companions nodded at the same time. Ebisu then said, I'm worried about the rumors spreading about. They say that the council has already assigned a new Hokage, when Tsunade-sama is still alive but critically injured. I'm afraid Danzo-sama has taken over the seat of power. Tsunade-sama was the only blockade that Danzo had for the title, but Kakashi-san said that we need to disperse the rumors. The new Hokage is not Danzo, but the details were hush-hush. Konohamaru looked on, raising his left eyebrow in doubt. Nah, I won't believe that. I bet it's the boss who became Hokage. Ebisu laughed at that remark. Konohamaru-kun, while indeed Naruto-kun has shown great potential in that fight with Pain, has indeed shown that Naruto-kun has improved, he is still far too young to become Hokage. For one, he still needs experience in leading. The rumors said he hasn't led a team before, so I doubt he's eligible at the moment. Oh, how Ebisu would eat those words right out of his mouth when the announcement came. Konohamaru shrugged. Hey, it was just a suggestion. As they approached the house that Kakashi had instructed them, Ebisu knocked on the door and coughed a little, clearing his voice. He had heard from Kakashi that the lady of the house was an unmarried mother who had looks of a 20-year-old model. Ebisu was naturally sold on the mission. He wanted to have a big first impression after all. Adjusting his glasses for a cool effect, Ebisu's suave and coolness of the situation had him met with a frying pan to his face. Wham! Mom, it's another stalker. Honestly, why don't you just marry someone, Mom? That way these guys won't be bothering us anymore. Konohamaru then glared at the boy and shouted, Hey, why'd you hit Sensei like that? Sure, he's a closet pervert, but he's completely harmless. Ebisu struggled to get up and clutch his nose in pain. That brat has some powerful arm swing. Moegi smiled at the boy with the fisherman's hat and said, "Actually, we're just emissaries from Konoha. We're here on account of the acting Hokage requesting someone by the name of Tazuna-san to assist us in some rebuilding." Inari raised an eyebrow at that, but when he heard the word Konoha, his eyes immediately sparked to life. "Oh, from Konoha? I'm sorry. Mom has a lot of guy problems actually. Just this week, I almost fired the crossbow on the guy that was spying on Mom by the tree outside. So I'm a bit careful." "Great detection skills," Ebisu commented, grabbing his first aid kit and an antiseptic. "Anyway, you're looking for my grandpa. He's in the main town. Why don't you guys just wait for him here? He'll be back soon." The boy then gestured for the guests to come in, that the four politely agreed, and went inside. Inari was ecstatic. "Hey, have you heard someone by the name of Uzumaki Naruto?" he asked. The three genins looked at each other and nodded. "You mean Oyabun? Yeah, he's pretty well known in our place. He just saved us from destruction just 2 days ago," Konohamaru mentioned, grinning. "You don't say. Tell me what Ni-san did," Inari demanded. His mother then stepped out of the kitchen and smiled. Now Inari, it's not nice to demand something from our guests this early," Tsunami said. Ebisu looked at the motherly figure that appeared before him, absolutely stunned by her earthly beauty, no, her goddess-like features. "Ah, I'm sorry for barging in, Mrs. Tsunami. I'm sorry for barging in, Mrs. Tsunami, but we're here to ask for Tazuna-san's help in some repairs in the village." Tsunami nodded with a smile. "Oh? What happened?" Konohamaru continued, "Like we said, this guy almost destroyed us if it weren't for Naruto Oyabun." Tsunami then sat down as Konohamaru had said Naruto's fight against pain. All in exaggerated detail. Ebisu meanwhile, couldn't really correct Konohamaru on that one. After all, it was a close interpretation on what happened. Sure, it was a bit exaggerated in some areas, like Konohamaru mentioning his super awesome Rasengan blasting one body to chunks and bits. But it was close as a 12-year-old's interpretation anyway. A knock on the door was heard. Inari was about to grab his weapon of choice for the day, the frying pan, until he had heard the man slurred and shouted incoherently from the other side of the door. "Let me in. Itish me, Grandpa. Bleeg." The sound of hurling and a few chunks of liquid splashing on the ground were heard outside. "Uh-oh," Konohamaru uttered. Moegi voiced her concern. "Did he just barf?" Ebisu sighed. Kakashi didn't tell him that the person they were searching for was a drunkard. This was going to be a long explanation. 2 days earlier, Naruto had arrived at Myobokuzen. Many of the citizens from Konoha didn't know where he had gone to, and he hoped it'd stay that way for a while. He was fearful of what might happen. But now that he had made up his mind, it was time to start thinking ahead. Jiraiya always did say if he put his mind to it, he'd be a better shinobi, possibly better than any of his generation group and beyond. Jiraiya had told him how he was much like the person Naruto is. The old pervert told him about how he was just not focused enough in handling one task in training back then. When Jiraiya was a kid, he would often neglect training in favor of peeping. That and his idea of being a ninja was to make Tsunade fall in love with him for his display of machismo. That didn't really suit well with the said girl, as it seemed what he received from Tsunade was a beating that almost made him kick the bucket. A little pep talk from the Sandame changed his ways a little. Sure, he was still the lecherous sleazebag that Tsunade occasionally nailed to the wall or flung him to lower Earth orbit, but he got to go serious about his ninja career, and look where that got him in this lifetime. Naruto went inside Shima and Fukasaku's home, intent on learning all that he can. The old lady Toad spoke to him. "Naruto-chan, there's the bookshelves about Fuinjutsu near our rooms. If you want to start reading on the basics about sealing, then go ahead. But be advised it's kind of hard to do when you apply it. I suggest you do that in the morning, you can read at night. Be advised, Naruto-chan, Fuinjutsu normally takes up a lot of characters and symbols to be written. You should have an extensive vocabulary to write the seals down. Jiraiya-chan had to learn about writing them for 3 weeks non-stop. Are you sure 5 days is all that you need? Learning this is purely self-study, we can only watch you perform them." Naruto looked at Shima and said, "It's all that I need." Shima smiled at this. "Very well, I'll leave you to your devices, Naruto-chan." Naruto nodded, as he began taking notes on a piece of paper and began writing down some of the important parts that seemed important as he read. Fuinjutsu, the art of sealing, is still a very mystified concept in the world. It has been an ancient art existing longer than the Rakudo Sennin's time. Artisans of this field are rare, as often, learning the art of sealing is meticulous and time-consuming. Often the use of fuinjutsu is to bind an object or living organism into another, existing in one being yet not being the same. Different characters have different effects, often the amalgam of seals causes a new effect to occur. This is called transmutation, as it gives countless possibilities to produce with just a simple stroke. Naruto then turned the page and continued. Fuinjutsu is much of a science as it is mysticism. Sealing techniques are what preserved the human civilization from extinction. The reason being that fuinjutsu has been used in ages past as a means in everyday lives like energy consumption and storage. The uses of fuinjutsu is endless. Naruto soon got bored of the introduction. Turning the page, he skimmed the very first 10 pages and then wound up on starting the basics. Naruto immediately raised an eyebrow at this and went outside of the elder Toad's house. He could hear the rushing toad oil falling from the cascading waterfall. There were no crickets in here, as if there were, they would have been decimated by Gamatotsu alone. But there were the stars out tonight, and he did have a flashlight in his backpack. So with a flick of his hands together, he formed the seal for Kage Bunshin, and in a matter of seconds, 1,000 clones immediately came into existence with a loud pop along with a copy of the book per clone. The original Naruto then shouted, "Alright guys, you have 4 hours to study page 10 of the book up to page 40. Let's make this the most rigorous training we've ever had yet." The clones all nodded and gave a shout. Konoha, present time. Kakashi viewed the people in front of his desk. With a tap on the desk, he looked on and sighed. There weren't missions to hand out for the moment since the village is undergoing major repairs. Yamato was out there overseeing the construction, and being the one with the Mokuton ability, he's been asked to restore some of the houses. Kakashi held back a laugh at the disgruntled and fatigued image of his Kohai crossing his mind. The villagers make it sound so easy on Yamato. Kakashi's musings were quickly vanished from his thoughts as he heard Hyuga Neji clearing his throat. "Ah, I see you have become the Hokage, rival Kakashi," Guy shouted. Of course, Kakashi's mind, going on autopilot, replied. "Oh Guy, what are you doing here?" Said man pointed a finger to the proxy Hokage and said, Kakashi, you and your hip ways, that is why you are my rival. I challenge you Kakashi, WHO will make a better Hokage. If I lose, I'll rebuild Konoha with my elbows, and if I can't do that, I'll use my feet, and if I can't do that. The matter of leading the village isn't a contest, sensei, Neji yelled. Tenten nodded in approval of Neji's outburst. Kakashi then said, "Look, before your sensei delves deep into his mind to parts unknown and spout more of his rules, I'm handing over this mission to you guys to Spring Country, requesting for aid, alright? Don't open the scroll, it's only meant for the princess of the land since she's the commander-in-chief there." Neji merely nodded and exited and grumbled, "Of all the eccentric Junin out there, why was I under him?" Kakashi gave an eye smile. Of course the scroll contained the letter about all of the aid and supplies that they might need, along with a copy of the Icha Icha Paradise movie he wanted signed, but they didn't need to know that. Who says you can't be abusive about your powers every once in a while? Now to find a team that's gullible enough to go into a wild goose chase. God, how he loved being a proxy for the Hokage. Ebisu and his team was the first victim, so who's going to be the next unfortunate schmuck? Back in Myobokuzen, a blonde-haired teenager sneezed and a shiver ran down his spine, making him lose his concentration. "Something tells me I need to finish my training faster than usual," the blonde said, sniffing, and continued to read the book. Now to oversee how Sakura and the others are faring. Kakashi got up from his seat and went out of the office, and went outside. The frog summoner by the side of the desk perched on his shoulder. Once they got out, he immediately went to Ground Zero and looked for the personal tent that held the comatose Tsunade. Once inside, he greeted Sakura who, along with Shizune, were meticulously guarding and taking care of the Godem. "Kakashi-sensei, is it true that Konoha is now enlisting Sasuke-kun as a nuke nin?" Sakura asks, not looking at Kakashi. Kakashi hadn't heard of this. Naruto didn't declare Sasuke a missing nin yet. "Who gave those rumors?" Kakashi asks. Sakura looked down, a sullen expression crossing her face. "It's not a fact yet, Kakashi-san, that with speculation that Danzo-sama is going to be Hokage, we fear for the worst to happen to Sasuke." Shizune answered. Kakashi nodded. "Well, dispel those rumors for now. I've already said this to Team Ebisu. Danzo isn't the replacement for Hokage." Kakashi answered, alleviating any worries from his former student. "Do you know who's going to be selected, Kakashi-sensei?" Kakashi kept a straight poker face and replied, not going to, already selected. Though he wants to keep it quiet for a while, said that there were still things left undone. Shizune raised an eyebrow at this and then noticed, that's right, I completely forgot. Where is Naruto? We need to check up on him for any signs of injuries. Ma, Naruto's fine, he's just doing some unfinished business, Kakashi casually replied and added, he'll be back here in a matter of days, don't worry, he's perfectly fine. Understanding that sentence that Kakashi passed off to Shizune, made the older woman slightly frown. She may have already an inkling suspicion what with Kakashi's hint at the end, but she wasn't going to say it out loud. No, with the announcement that the successor of Tsunade be introduced by the end of the week, it meant that the new Hokage or the person that she suspects would be up to something. Sakura only nodded and focused back on healing her master. She just hoped that Danzo was not the one that was going to be Hokage. As they went back to caring for Tsunade, it was then that they heard a voice, calling out to Sakura to go out. The said girl walked out only to be met with Shikamaru with a completely healed leg. Sakura, the rookie 9 of our time, decided to have a talk about how to deal with everything that's happened. Sakura then nodded, she followed suit entrusting the care of Tsunade to Shizune, who nodded and Kakashi remained quiet. Have you realized what that talk might be, Kakashi-san? Asked Shizune, looking sullen. Kakashi looked up and said. I kind of got the idea of what it's about, Kakashi said. Once Shikamaru escorted Sakura to the place where all of them could talk about what Shikamaru wanted to tell, all the present of the rookie 9, minus Sasuke and Naruto, were already in the training field that Sakura recognized was the place that Team 7 was created during the Bell test 3 years ago. Shikamaru, it isn't like you to call all of us out here and have a discussion, Kiba said, looking serious. When Shikamaru went and did some effort around the village, it meant one thing, the dire consequences are about to occur. Indeed, your behavior suggests that you are going to speak about something that could change our very perception of what is to come. Shino concurred. Ever the observant Aburame, Shikamaru lazily scratched the back of his neck and said. See, can we please start? I need to tend to my clansmen in the compound, the damages are quite severe after that attack, Hinata said. Sakura looked sullen when she saw Hinata. It felt like something had hit her when she saw Hinata knocking on death's door, down on the ground and bleeding, all for the sake of Naruto. My dad is helping with the repairs downtown, I need to go out there as well. My god, I don't know what would have happened if Naruto hadn't arrived later, Choji mentioned. Alright, I got it, just let me say it first. Shikamaru then walked to the side and leaned on one of the erected stumps on the training grounds. Have any of you felt something close to mortifying when we were out there, fighting against that monster, Pain? All of the former rookie 9 remained silent. All of them were looking down for a reason. Pain managed to kill more than half of our population when that jutsu was used on the village. I saw a lot of people died in just a flash, in just a moment. I saw people dying left and right, children crying or dead. I never felt so horrible. If you were near the decryption department, close to downtown, you could have seen the very effect of the epicenter of that jutsu. Shikamaru felt a shiver crawl down his spine, holding his formerly injured leg, all those horrified souls that were dead just mere days ago, flashing before his eyes. Then just in the evening after the attack, when I just got my leg healed, I was down by the record section since it was close to our home. I overheard this conversation from 3 foreign nin that came, they were Kumo nin. Shikamaru continued, I heard that Sasuke became part of Akatsuki. Everyone seemed to gasp at this. Kiba shouted, what the hell is going on? What on earth possessed Sasuke to join that organization? I don't know, but based on the reports from Intel, Akatsuki had managed to capture the 8-tailed host. You can already see where this is going. Shikamaru answered. Ino then spoke up. But that can't be right. Sasuke joined the same organization as his brother, the same organization that killed Asuma-sensei. Shikamaru sighed and continued, it wasn't the fact that Sasuke captured the 8-tailed host that served as the breaking point for a foreign village to move out. It was the fact that the 8-tailed host was the brother of the Raikage. You understand now? Sasuke caused such an international uproar that the way I see it, Danzo or not, the new Hokage has no choice but to place Sasuke on the bingo book, lest he or she wants our village to go to war. Besides, I'd be damned if they take Naruto. This time, Shikamaru's expression turned grim. This time Kiba's fists were shaking. So it comes to this, then, do we have a choice? Sasuke was our friend, but I'm not going to let him take Naruto. Shino replied, in his monotone, if persuasion through words cannot reach Sasuke anymore, then there's no helping it. I'd rather kill Sasuke than lose Naruto. Wait. How can you be sure that the new Hokage would just let this stand by? Sakura asks. Shikamaru explained to Sakura. Sakura, no one who is not a ninja of Konoha is allowed to go the records department, you understand, right? That's where they store info on Anbu profiles, Shinobi profiles and most of all, Jutsu and Konoha techs. You think that the Hokage will allow 3 foreign nin to just casually walk in there? They need permission and supervision, and I happen to see Yamato-sensei there. What's going to happen? Ino looked at Shikamaru in worry. Shikamaru grabbed one of his teacher's trench knives and gripped the handle as tight as he can. We're going to take care of Sasuke, with or without Naruto's approval. It's bad enough that he carries the burden for all of us. We can't rely on him forever. We need to grow up as well. Shikamaru said. It was then that Ino and Sakura started breaking down. Hinata remained silent in the whole ordeal. Sasuke is now liable for his actions. There's nothing that can be done. I wanted to tell this to Naruto, but he isn't here. I've tried finding him everywhere. The ramen shop, the training fields, his apartment, even the goddamn monument. He isn't anywhere. Shikamaru said. Sakura then said to Shikamaru, take me to the Hokage. TCH, like that'll be easy. The whole council is hiding the fact of who's going to be the next Hokage. I even asked my dad who it was. He just said that the matter will reveal itself in 3 days. I'm sorry, Sakura, but if you want to talk to the Hokage, you're going to have to wait 3 more days to finally speak to him, her. Sakura could only let the tears fall from her eyes. Myobokuzan. 2 days. 2 days had passed and Naruto's progress has been occurring in leaps and bounds. He had most of the symbols and characters down by the morning of the 2nd day, using his Kage Bunshin in a span of 4 hours to learn about the symbols and characters. He had the basis for sealing done 2 days ago and now, he had been practicing his applied knowledge on it. One sealing technique in particular caught his eye. Fukahoin, fire suppression seal. The ability to suppress any fire. In its first use, the seal was used to put down forest fires, burning houses and wildfires that are close to human civilizations. This is the seal that Ero Sennin used to suppress that black fire 3 years ago. Naruto then made his clones turn on the page that he wanted them to turn and shouted, "Alright, this is another sealing procedure to master, can you guys do this?" They all nodded as each of them grabbed an ink and brush from their bags and grabbed another scroll. Shima and Fukasaku were then requested to make a powerful Kaiten jutsu. The 2 frogs looked at each other and nodded. Putting up their hand seals, they shouted. Kaiten. Gamayu Enden, fire release, toad oil flame bullet. The 2 frogs then looked up and blew the devastating fire jutsu upwards. The fire erupted and had spread in a wide arc. The clones then quickly began to work. Pouring chakra onto the writings of the seal, the clones slammed their hands on it. Fuinjutsu. Fukahoin. The original shouted, as tendrils of chakra escaped from the scrolls, beginning to grapple the fire that was dancing in midair. The chakra began to siphon the flames, forcing it down to the scroll, the symbol of fire, etching to the scroll as the symbols and characters began surrounding the symbol of fire. Naruto grinned, a success. Well, you have a pretty firm grip of understanding Fuinjutsu now. These are just the basics. Writing seals are the basic of the basics. Since you can actually do seals in writing easier, we can finally move on to the sealing techniques that you don't have to write, but you let chakra weave the seal for you, Fukasaku said. Naruto wiped the sweat from his brow and nodded enthusiastically. 3 days left, unknown location. Sasuke had informed his team to prepare and head to Konoha, as they exited and began running as fast as they can. Sasuke mentioned that Taka would no longer have a use for Akatsuki, they had paid their debt, and they were going away for good. On the serene forest far from Sasuke, a spiral-like pattern in the air rippled and spun, revealing the mask of Tobi. Sasuke was jumping from branch to branch, when suddenly, he was met with the man that had blocked their path. Suigetsu, who was following Sasuke, stopped and asked the leader of their group. "What's wrong, Sasuke?" Sasuke was staring at the masked persona that was Uchiha Madara. Karen seemed surprised by the sudden appearance, it was as if the man had popped out of nowhere. "Hey, Sasuke," was the man's only reply. Sasuke asked the man. "How did you know where I was?" Madara only leaned in closer and said, "Don't underestimate me, this technique is well within my powers." It was then that Sasuke spoke. "What do you want with me now? Taka is no longer part of Akatsuki, We have no further use for you. I said I'd have to kill you if you betray Akatsuki and you broke your promise to me. The man's single visible Sharingan squinted as it looked at Sasuke. Sasuke seemed confused of the man in axe. What are you talking about? The eight-tailed beast, you failed to capture it, Sasuke. Karen then said, but I thought we captured it, we even gave it to you. Madara stared at them quietly. Suigetsu seemed agitated by the man as well as Jugo. It was a fake, the eight tails pulled a fast one on you, I'm really disappointed in you guys. The man said, dissatisfaction in his voice. Sasuke seemed to realize his mistake even with he failed to notice that the tentacle that he severed during the fight with the eight tails could have contained Killer Bee. His musings were cut off when Suigetsu shouted, what do you want us to do about it? It's not our business anymore, since we did your part of the bargain you do it yourselves. No, you will finish your last job as part of Akatsuki. Forget about the eight tails, I already sent someone to capture him, there's something else I want all of you to do. Sasuke then asked, as he lowered his base, what if I said no? Madara replied in a casual manner, then you'll have to fight me to get to Konoha, I won't let you pass. Sasuke's hand flickered with lightning as it crackled loudly and held it close to his chest, the Chidori coming to life. I'll force my way through. With a flash, Sasuke immediately closed in on Madara, with Sasuke's hand already extended to Madara's chest. But just when Sasuke had thought that he had speared Tobi with the Chidori, he soon saw himself, actually phasing through the man. Madara simply said, it's a little too late to go to Konoha now. Your goal is futile now, too bad, Konohagakure no longer exists, my minion, Pain destroyed it. Sasuke looked surprised, his eyes wide at that, this bastard, he took away his goal. He could feel his anger welling up, rising like tides smashing against the shore. Sasuke slowly inched his hand towards Kusanagi, about to go all out on Tobi, until he saw a green plant with jagged patterns in the middle rise from the branch that Madara stood on. Suigetsu seemed surprised and asked who was the person that appeared. Calm down, he's with me. Madara reassured them. So who's the new Hokage? Asked Madara. The talks were very secretive, but from the rumors going around Konoha, they say that the next in line for Hokage is Danzo. Zetsu mentioned, this got Sasuke's interest. Madara looked at Sasuke for a moment, he could feel the sudden rise of killing intent coming from Sasuke. Madara seemed to smile under his mask in this predicament. I thought as much, Madara said. Sasuke asked, Danzo is Hokage? Tobi only said, it's just factual speculation, but he is the most probable candidate at the current situation. He's the one responsible for making your brother do what he did, and now, he's Hokage. Sasuke gritted his teeth, this time his right hand was now holding Kusanagi. Because you and Pain had made such a commotion, the 5 cages had begun to move. They're about to hold a meeting. Sasuke remained silent at this as Zetsu continued. I'll explain the rest, Sasuke. You see, Pain took initiative in capturing the 9-tailed host and we let him. Take into mind that Pain was one of our strongest members. He conquered a Megacure and can do a jutsu that can take out an entire village. Yeah, he could probably kick your assess without a problem. At the mentioning of the phrase, 9-tailed host, Sasuke pictured Naruto, who had stared at him back then, those ruthless, blood-colored irises and that almost malicious, animalistic slit he ever saw. But when Pain had invaded Konoha, he terrorized the village and destroyed most of it. Now Konoha is in ruins, but Pain still lost to one person. He lost to Uzumaki Naruto, the 9-tailed host. Suigetsu raised an eyebrow and asked, so this Naruto defeated Pain all by himself? That's right, he's gotten pretty strong, he may be even stronger than Sasuke. The Uchiha scoffed at the idea and said, I don't care about that, the 5 cages are the problem. Suigetsu then said, well, what are you going to do then, Sasuke? Danzo's your target, right? Konoha is pretty much decimated. If Danzo is going to that meeting, shouldn't we just go over there by ourselves? Sasuke seemed to contemplate at this, considering the almost near impossible chance of not having a head-on collision with any of the cages. Karen, however, seemed adamant about the whole thing. For one, it was the freaking 5 cages. There was no way that Sasuke could even hope to fight them all at once. Only a madman would dare do so. We'll go to the meeting and kill the 5 cages, our plans have changed, Sasuke said, without as much as hesitation in his voice. Karen could feel herself shivering at the thought of facing the top ninjas of each of the 5 major villages. For someone, even if it is Sasuke, facing all 5 of them in one place is beyond suicide. Madara, however, seemed to encourage Sasuke's harebrained idea. So where is this meeting? Karen asks, resigning herself to her fate. Madara motioned for Zetsu to lead them and Zetsu did so. The jagged pattern of the leaf separated, seeing figure of a man, whose body and face was separated in black and white, and it kept separating, tearing himself down in the middle. To the rest that are not used to this, they were utterly disgusted when they saw Zetsu, fully severing himself in two, as his white half lead the way with the 4 members of Taka following behind. Jugo seemed unsure of the predicament. Can we trust them, Sasuke? Let's just see what happens. If he tries anything funny, I'll use Amaterasu on him. There's something I've been meaning to test out anyway, Sasuke mentioned, as they jumped straight towards the land of iron. I can't believe Nagato used Rinne Tensei like that. That was supposed to be reserved for me. What a betrayal. Uzumaki Naruto, he's thrown a wrench to my plans. Zetsu, I think it's time we step up, finally let the world know what we are truly aiming for. Time for the Tsuki no Mi to come into fruition. Myobokuzan. Naruto had never thought how seals were so versatile. That introduction from the first book didn't do the endless possibilities of Fuinjutsu justice. It was unimaginable. From one of the writings of the book, it was said that Fuinjutsu, in the hands of a true artisan, could turn into the most deadly weapon. Right now, he had even created a seal that gives the body a sudden electrical jolt whenever someone was struck with genjutsu. It didn't matter what kind of genjutsu it was, as long as the seal was placed, the seal would trigger and command the chakra to cause a defibrillator effect and jolt on the neural nerve cells to disrupt the chakra flow. It was painful, but since he was still new to the sealing arts, it was understandable. Hopefully he could turn this new art that he had learned as a sort of hobby, maybe even incorporate it for some entertainment. Now that he had only 1 day left before going back, he thought about all that has happened so far, all of the events that had come into culmination due to the people responsible. It seemed like fate was a stack of dominoes, one decision affected all. In his case, it was absolutely true. Going through a set of hand seals, he had discovered that in Fuinjutsu, the sequence of seals had purpose. For example, the boar seal meant the grasp of the earth. It was about stasis, as earth was unbending to anyone's will. The earth symbolized fortitude and strength. In Fuinjutsu, doing the seal of the boar meant putting an object in stasis and suppression, forcing something to go down or become inactive. Next was the dragon. It symbolized uninhibited instinct and nobility. The dragon meant superiority and benevolence, the wind above their head soaring into the sky. In Fuinjutsu, the dragon bears the ability to release tension, relieve, convert raw power to something more manageable, a buffer if you will. Oi Naruto, here's the request you made 4 days ago. Naruto's musings were cut off when he saw Gamakichi leaping towards him with the said object in hand. Naruto ran towards Gamakichi and thanked his longtime toad friend. Thanks, Gamakichi, this is perfect. Once Naruto grabbed the object in his hand, he raised it up above his shoulder and met it at eye level. Naruto had requested a Fuma shuriken be made on the same metal that Asuma had with his trench knives, meaning the chakra absorbed by the blade would be amplified. But what set this Fuma shuriken different from the rest was the black handle it had at the ring in the middle. Since Fuma shuriken had a folding-like trigger, it looked like a weapon that could be used in both close range and long range. Most of the weapon had one unique trait that Naruto wanted. The edge was reversed. The blunt part was meant to bludgeon, it could be lethal, but the most important was that the blade would only be used when thrown to pin down an opponent or distract them long enough for Naruto to take down. I don't get it why you want that shuriken to have a handle. It's not like you'll be able to fight with it most of the time at close range, and the Fuma shuriken's locking mechanism when it's closed is flimsy. Gamakichi explained. Naruto replied. Not really, I've got a seal designed to interlocking it in place and then releasing it in its shuriken state. Naruto then grabbed an ink and a brush. Since the Fuma shuriken was made from a different metal, it didn't exactly had the same color as a normal Fuma shuriken, in fact it was silver. The only thing dark in the weapon was the handle that was in the ring at the middle. Naruto then began to write the kanji for blade on the first side of the shuriken and then wrote the kanji for windmill on the other. Naruto then put his hands together for a series of seals. First, he started with the dog seal, symbolizing loyalty and obedience, for the Fuma shuriken to activate upon verbal command. Then he used the seal of monkey, the symbol of intelligence and autonomy, to activate by what command phrase that Naruto wanted and to make it automatically revert back to its blade form without a need for a verbal command when unneeded. Then he used the dragon to buffer his chakra slowly into the blade and then tiger, the symbol of power and pride, to activate the metal's amplification properties. Naruto then slammed his right hand on the character of blade, as it is the initial seal that he had written. "Whoa, Aniki, what did you do?" Gamakichi asks. Naruto grinned. "It's one of the easy seals I managed to come up with just yesterday. I called it Ningu Eihei, Ninja Tool Sentinel. You'd be really surprised just how much Kage Bunshin you need just to make up a seal. It feels like 20 years doing all that work," Naruto exclaimed. Gamakichi laughed. Naruto was still in the process of learning the no symbol style Fuinjutsu, but he was getting there. Fukasaku said that being adept in it is all that's needed for a while. He had a meeting to attend to anyway. So with tomorrow his last day before going back to his village, he trained with getting to know how to use his Fuma Shuriken instead. As the end of his 5-day training period coming closer and closer, Naruto, on his last day, decided to sleep and rest before being summoned back to Konoha. Naruto, in his heart, was preparing him for his newest task. Guiding Konoha through the tides of uncertainty, protecting everyone and finally, bring about a new age of a world that his former teacher had longed for. Konoha, 5 days after Pain's attack. "Are you ready?" Kakashi asks. The figure at the back wore his red and black haori, a folded Fuma Shuriken strapped on his back, the black long-sleeve shirt under his green vest and black pants, wearing the red and white hat that symbolized his authority within Konoha. The symbol of fire placed at the tip forward. The figure nodded. The elders by the side were standing sideways as they wait for the figure to step out of the door towards the balcony of the Hokage's building that miraculously survived from Pain's assault. "As long as there are leaves, the will of fire shall never die." The figure looked on at the pictures of the 5 Hokages that had ruled before him, as he took a step forward like a true leader, the elders and advisors, then saw the silhouette of Hokages past, the back of Senju Hashirama, Tobirama, Hiruzen, Minato and Tsunade, going out to face that roaring crowd, his face hidden by the hat that had been placed above his head. Kakashi, Yamato, Koharu and Homura were wide-eyed. They were breathless as they saw the person walking towards the people. From the midst of tragedy and despair, the will of fire has shone, and it had shined brightly in the radiant sun. As the people saw the person that had walked towards them, the winds howled and swayed in his presence. It was then that the new Hokage, to many that had seen the red and black haori whose hem of the clothing danced into the wind as the person walked towards them, they immediately recognized the person under that hat. Many would recall this as the moment of absolute change. Flashes of memories littered the minds of the people as they saw the face of the new Hokage removing the hat that he had coveted for so long, ever since his childhood. "As long as there are leaves in this village, the will of fire shall never die. I am the Rokudame Hokage. I am Uzumaki Naruto, and I will lead this village from now until my very last breath." The sounds of cheers and yells of praises could only be heard on the 5th day of the Rokudame's reign. Let fire burn brightest upon the most wise. The end. Thank you for watching, guys.